This is the Digital Marketing Experts Podcast episode. No, why am I trying to sound like a radio announcer? Experts in the Wire, episode 63. Nadya Khoja. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 63 of Experts on the Wire. This week's guest was referred to me as someone who could teach you, the listener, the value of infographics. And I said, infographics, they sort of have a bad reputation. They've really gotten a bad rap through link building and things like that. But when I dug into this company's SEMrush traffic stats, I was completely blown away by their recent explosive growth. They went from having about 2,000 to 6,000 or so visitors on average in 2015, according to SEMrush, which we know is a little bit lower than normal, to close to 60 to 70 to even up to 85,000 organic visitors in 1 month, according to SEMrush, in early 2017. So when I saw that, I had to bring today's guest on the show and find out how they did it. That company is Venngage, and my guest is their director of marketing, Nadya Khoja. I brought her on the show to find out how they use their own product, infographic tools, to grow their search traffic to well over 50,000 visits in less than 2 years. She talks about the specific steps they took to publish content and use it to earn links. You'll find out how they create content topics, how they do the research, how they create the content, and how they perform outreach, and how to apply these to your own content marketing efforts. I did spend the first chunk of this interview learning about Nadya's background, as well as chatting a little bit about infographics in general. So if you want to jump to the growth story, go to about the 18.5-minute mark. But if not, sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of Experts on the Wire with Nadya Khoja. I want to talk a little bit about your background. So on your LinkedIn profile, it says that you, I think, have a degree in the arts, and then you went on to theater and sound design. Tell me about that.
So I actually have my undergrad is in a type of theater called devised theater. So it's very experimental, very avant-garde, like hipster performance art, if you will. So I did that for 4 years. And of course, after graduating, I'm like, well, how am I supposed to make money with this degree? Mm-hmm. So I did my master's in digital media, which was good. It was an extensive program. So I definitely learned a lot about startup culture. And it was definitely one part design, one part tech, one part business. Mm-hmm. But I still didn't really learn anything about marketing. But I did do my thesis on the idea of audiences and live performance and what the correlation of technology and live performance is, and just how to engage audiences. So I think that's what kind of drove me into marketing. That's
very interesting. And we were chatting just beforehand. I was talking about my editing experiences with the podcast here. So my degree is in piano performance, liberal arts degree. So I relate to that. In your LinkedIn profile, you went from sound designer, and then I think you made a jump to writer, and then a jump to now marketing. So how did those jumps happen? Did they just fall into your lap, or like did you seek out writing or something more monetarily friendly?
Well, the sound design was right after I graduated. I was doing a lot of fringe festival shows. Mm-hmm. So I started with sound design for one project that was okay. Mm-hmm. But after that, I was starting to, this is when I started my master's. So I was starting to look for jobs more in the tech area. And so I started writing. I actually got the job at Venngage first. And I think as I was trying to dip my toes in the water and figure out how to do marketing, mm-hmm. I started with content and just trying to guest post on as many sites as I could to just build up my influence a little bit, and learn a bit about what these sites were looking for. Mm-hmm. And then that's why you'll see on my profile, I have like certain writing gigs here and there that I just did on the side as a freelancer, but I see. I was still at Venngage at the time.
What were you writing about then? At like what topics were you choosing?
I think on my profile is when I was writing for the Inquisitor. So they're actually really strict about what they want you to write. It's because it's a news site. So every article has to be 400 words or more, between like 400 and 800 words or something. You have to produce, I think, 5 articles a week is what they expect. They pay you $10 an article.
$10? My goodness.
Oh, yeah. It's great money. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, you must be rich.
Oh, yeah. I can afford to take the bus. So, I mean, that wasn't really where my passion was. So I was just, I guess, trying to understand more about what these sites were looking for in terms of content. And then the Inquisitor is really specific about their SEO and how to write content that's optimized for search. So that's when I started learning a little bit about how to write content that ranks organically. And then from there, I started doing a little bit more research into SEO and got more interested in that channel of marketing.
Did you have prior writing experience, or does it just kind of come with the territory through doing arts and theater and sound design? That whole, I mean, I can relate to that. Like, I have no official background in writing, but once I started getting into it in the web, just, you know, the creativity, the arts, the theater, like you said, connecting with an audience, I think that all helps you as a writer. But did you have any prior, like, official writing experience? Not crazy writing experience. I mean, it definitely just comes from my theater background. I wrote plays, and yeah, that was basically it. Have you found that writing a play, you know, the goal there is storytelling, creating emotion, connecting with the audience, like you said. Have you found that that's helped you with your, you know, more business, quote, serious marketing that you're doing now?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the way you write in theater it's like bucket brigades, right? A play is basically written as a continuous dialogue. And so I find that
bucket brigade, what is that?
Bucket brigades. You know how, let's say I'm writing an article and I'm like, have you ever thought of this? Do you want me to tell you the answer? Have you ever thought of this? And then you just kind of keep asking like one line questions, and the article is just structured in kind of like bite-sized snippets. That's Bucket Brigade. Brian Dean does a lot of
Brian Dean, that's right. That's why I've heard that phrase before. Okay, so your background in theater writing definitely has helped your more business-oriented writing.
Oh, for sure.
And so that's how you kind of made the connection to writing and now marketing. One last question about your background. Is it true that you spoke at MozCon?
I did an Ignite talk there. So just the 5-minute snippet talk. I actually had an underground restaurant that I started in my apartment. So I used to invite strangers over for dinner, and then I did a talk on that. Oh, wow. At MozCon, yeah. Oh, wow.
That, for me, that came out of left field. I had not even found that in my research. So what was this underground restaurant?
My roommate and I, one day, so there's this group in Toronto that's pretty massive now. It's called Buns Trading Zone. So people will post anything from like a can of soup to clothes to old furniture, and you just trade it with somebody else. So instead of trading just leftover food for alcohol, I think we were eating and we were talking about how we wish we had wine. We decided to invite people over for dinner instead, so that they would bring the wine and
there you go.
Yeah, we would cook the dinner. But I mean, I started blogging about it and pitching it to a bunch of publications.
Yeah.
We got a lot of interviews and a lot of traffic from that story. So now I remember we were in the elevator one time in our building, and this guy did a double take, and he was like, "Were you guys on the news?" And we're like, "Yeah." He's just like, "Oh my God, like I watched your video. It's all over Facebook." And
yeah, I didn't know the interview would eventually lead to alcohol as a topic, but you know, hey, why not, right? And I got to get to Toronto. I interviewed Saul Orwell, who has his cookie event every year.
Oh yeah, I went to that event.
Oh, did you go to that? Yeah, that's something I want to try to get to with my wife. But anyway, so I want to get to Venngage and then the growth, and you know, just to tease the listeners again a little bit. You know, I'm looking at Open Site Explorer, and according to Maj, you've got over 900 linking root domains, and a domain authority is 68. So there's a lot of great content marketing, SEO stuff coming up in just a moment. But before we get to that, I want to just put it into context. So what exactly is Venngage?
Venngage is an infographic tool. the way I describe it is usually like a drag and drop Photoshop. So it's geared towards non-designers. There's lots of templates that you can start out with. So that way you can just quickly edit the text, the colors, make your own infographic in about an hour, as opposed to hiring a graphic designer who's going to take a week to do something.
Is it in-browser web-based software?
Yep. It's all, and everything's auto-saved.
So
within the browser.
You mentioned the word infographic, and this is something that I have to ask. I know all the listeners are going to want me to ask this as well. I'll set it up with a quick little story. So I had Carrie Jones on this podcast a couple of weeks ago, and she said that the one word that journalists will set up a spam filter for email is infographic. So anytime the journalist gets an email with the word infographic, it goes to spam. That's how they all set it up now. So I have to ask, in a day and an age where infographics can get a bad name, a bad reputation, I guess I'm looking for I'm playing devil's advocate, and I'm looking for, come to the defense of infographic for the audience. How is this still, a thing that has value in content marketing?
I wasn't aware that there was a filter set up to block infographic.
Yeah, well, they manually set it up, but I guess it's this underground thing between journalists. So some people call it different names. I know you have something called a guestographic, which we're going to talk about. So, maybe this is something that you should talk to Carrie about, and maybe you can talk about, a collaboration, or I don't know. I'm just talking off the top of my head, but talk to us about the value that infographics still have. It must have value. Venngage has had so much growth. Your content gets so much traffic, so many links. Why did infographics get a bad name to begin with, and what is the value still with them?
I think why they got a bad name is there was that period of time where people would create an infographic on a specific subject, and then they would do a ton of outreach on anyone who'd written about that subject. So let's say you wrote about the 10 SEO trends in 2017, and then I go to Ahrefs and I'm searching for anyone who's ever written about that topic, and then I'm like, hey, I made this infographic, do you want to post it? I'll write up a 400-word blurb. But that doesn't work anymore, because people now understand you have to create really good content. You have to create content that's better than what it's already ranking first on Google. So that tactic is just like, I get pitches like that all the time, and I ignore them, or I tell them I'm not interested. It just shows that there is a little bit of a lack of research. I think the benefit is no longer just producing vast amount of content, which is why people use that method of outreach with infographics. So that's definitely where I think the bad name came from. But what's interesting is we actually did a survey with about 300 marketers, and we did a visual marketing statistics survey. So during that survey, a lot of people actually said that the majority of marketers used stock images as their main form of visual. But when asked what type of visual had the highest level of engagement, the majority, so 41.5%, said that infographics and original graphics were the most engaging and had the longest time on page. So that being said, they might not be as useful in terms of doing the outreach and getting a link for something that's already been created. But in terms of keeping people on your page and reading your content, it's just a way easier form of content to digest. So that's why I think they're still powering through.
Yeah. And I like to play devil's advocate a little, because I know my audience, right? They're pretty savvy when it comes to content and SEO. So the other reason I think I'm speculating they have a bad name is because for a while they were a little bit like the widget thing, right? Where like people would try to use the embed code that came along with an infographic to try to use that to get backlinks. It was definitely a backlink play for quite a long time in the SEO space. But I've looked at a lot of the infographics that you've created on Venngage for content, and they're amazing. They look great. They don't hit me at all as being spammy or low quality. Like, they're super well done. So I'm excited to talk about that. What is a guestographic?
So a guestographic, it's kind of like a guest post that you write for somebody else, except it's an infographic. So I guess just to add a little bit more background to that, we use Gestographics. It was what we actually used earlier on in Venngage when you see that spike in our organic rankings and our traffic. We started reaching out to people and just asking them if they wanted a free infographic. It was a way for us to promote the tool and get some brand recognition, but also to build links. And because our design team is very familiar with the software, it takes them maybe an hour, at most 2 hours, to create a really good visual on the tool. So the cost associated with creating a free infographic was very low for us. And so we started doing that, and we would just email people and get them to send us an outline, and we would create the visual for them. And in exchange, all we would ask for is that link back to the site. And we probably in 1 year created 600 infographics for different people. And that's really how we were able to scale up.
Were these exclusive infographics? So can I find the same infographic on several sites, or this was just a one custom design?
No, it was a custom design.
I see.
And then what we would usually tell them is, or ask them, is if we could use that same infographic as a template on our tool, which a lot of the time they're okay with because their logo's still there, their content's there, their link is there within the infographic. So most people were totally fine with that.
How long does it take? So you said the designers are quick with your own product, which makes sense. How long does an average, like myself, like if I were to go in there, I know a little bit about Photoshop and like have a decent eye for design. Like how long would it take somebody like me to create a decent infographic?
I think what takes the longest is just familiarizing yourself with the tool and figuring out where everything is. But once you have that down, I've created an infographic for somebody in the past when our designers were too busy, and it's taken me about an hour and a half. And I don't use the tool as frequently as they do. So once you familiarize yourself with the tool, you can create something really good, I'd say, in about an hour. If you're using the templates, like if you're not creating it from scratch, maybe less time.
Yeah. And by the way, I just want to mention again, I did play devil's advocate a little bit about the infographic before, but I'm looking at one of them that I'm going to talk about in a moment, and it's really nice. Like it's really well designed. These templates look really nice. The color scheme's great. It's a unique design. I'm looking at one that's a timeline, right? It looks like a big giant S that just keeps going infinitely, and like it's a unique design. I think it really communicates the story that this particular one's trying to tell. So I want to emphasize again that if the listeners are picturing what we were referring to earlier, these low quality, cheap looking infographics, that's not what we're dealing with here. And that's part of what I think was some of the success of that. So like somebody like me could purchase this tool and I could create infographics for people and pitch them as Gestographics. Isn't that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that one thing you find a lot of your customers are doing still?
We have a few customers that have done it. I mean, I've done a few webinars here and there on the exact process and how to do it. And I know a few people with SEO agencies that every time I tell them our process, they're blown away and they want to do the same thing. I mean, even if, let's say like you're not designing it yourself because you're busy, you have to focus on strategy, but you can go to Upwork and hire a freelance designer, send them the outline, get them to do the work, and it's easier for them to figure it out. Actually, a lot of people on Upwork are pretty familiar with the tool because I think a lot of agencies use infographic makers for their clients. So yeah, it's pretty common.
Yeah, I like that. So now I want to get to the beginning of the story of the growth of Venngage. So you showed up to Venngage around, I think you said it was sometime in 2015. Is that right?
About March 2015.
March 2015. And I remember looking at the SEMrush stats, and yeah, it's just after that time is when we're talking about you're doing those Gestographics, and then there's a big giant spike in the middle of 2016. And then the growth from there is just really incredible. I want everyone to go check out that SEMrush snapshot. But take me to the beginning. So you show up there, and like, I imagine, you're trying to get oriented, you're trying to kind of figure things out. But what's some things that you do in the first few weeks or month when you show up there?
Oh my God, it's embarrassing because I came in and I had no experience with marketing. So I think the first thing I Googled was, what is SEO? And then I started reading a lot. So I remember when I joined Venngage, Eugene, who's the CEO, he told me, he's like, yeah, I'm going to train you on everything. I'm going to tell you, show you the ropes, tell you exactly what you need to do. And he got busy, so he didn't train me. And the only thing he told me was get links. So here I am being like, all right, so I'm just going to email anybody I know with a website and ask them for some links.
Yeah.
And that's when I started just reading everything I knew, everything I could find. And I also started talking to a lot of people that were doing SEO well and just asking them for their feedback directly. And I found that was really useful.
And by the way, I think we all share that experience. I mean, there's been times where I have a consulting call coming up and I'm like literally Googling the exact SEO issue that person's having just because, maybe I haven't encountered it. I think that's something we all experience, but it's quite common to just be trying to learn things as you go in some scenarios. Mm-hmm. And obviously through the growth you had, I'm impressed by what's, happened since that time. And you mentioned that there were only 4 people there when you first got there. Is that right?
Yeah, I was the 4th person to join the team. And then one of the designers had just started at the time. So if you look, I'm pretty sure if you look at the metrics before that, the growth was pretty slow, pretty stagnant for a while. There was still some growth, but it wasn't anything exponential.
Yes. And you told me that there was a focus on organic. And one of the first things that you did was come up with a plan and a strategy. What were the beginning, how did that early strategy and plan, how did that look? Was it, we're going to publish content? Was it this guestographic thing? Like, what were some of the very early actions that you started to take on that strategy?
So when I came in, the blog, there was pretty much no blog. There was no good content on the site. So part of the process was starting to we wanted to produce original research that not only highlights the value of the tool and infographics in general, but that's actually useful for people. So we started doing stuff like that. And one of the studies that we did was what makes an infographic viral on Pinterest. And we actually analyzed over 200 different infographics on Pinterest and broke them down by length of the infographic, font style and pairings, color scheme, use of charts, that kind of thing. And we started creating this. And then early on, we were doing a lot of outreach, just promoting the content. And, you'll email somebody, hey, do you want to check out this article? Let me know your thoughts. And we had some good feedback from that, but it just wasn't at the level it needed to be. So we found that by we started pitching free infographics to just a handful of people. I think I maybe outreached to 5 to 10 people. And the first few people that took up the offer, they were really happy with it, and they kept in touch. They kept in touch with me, and then later down the line, whenever we had some new content that we produced, it was so much easier to just shoot them a quick email and be like, "Hey, produce this content. Thought you might want to check it out." And right away, they would link to it, right? Just because they knew the process at that point.
Yes.
So we just continued doing that, and we found that in the long run, it wasn't just the link that we were getting out of it. We were actually getting a great relationship with another marketer that we could approach again in the future, or that if they wanted to come to us with a favor, if they wanted to write a guest post for us or something like that, we were more willing to do it just because we had already had that ongoing interaction for so long.
Yes.
That's
curious.
As simple as it is.
Sure. I'm curious how you come up with the content topics and ideas. So there's 3 I wanted to use as examples: the hero's journey, how to create a timeline infographic in 6 steps, and how much do writers make. I'm going to link to all of those in the show notes, but I picked those out. I went to SEMrush. I looked at the pages that get a lot of your traffic. Hero's journey, I think you rank number 1 for hero's journey, or related keywords. And by the way, you rank number 1 for infographic, just that one word keyword, which is awesome. So where did these, or where do the topic and content ideas come from? Do you do keyword research? Do you just kind of come up with them as you're going about your other marketing activities? Where do those ideas come from?
So we definitely do the keyword research, but that's not usually the first process. There's actually, it depends on the type of content that we're going for, but there's different questions that we ask ourselves. The first one is, we'll try and solve a burning problem. So like I was saying with the Pinterest article, or the how much do freelance writers make, for instance, was a burning problem that we were having, because we were looking at a lot of sites. And I think I mentioned at Inquisitor, I was getting $10 per article. And I was like, that can't be right. So we were looking at, sorry
about that. So you saw a problem personally, and then you set out to solve that problem with the content. So it was kind of the scratching your own itch thing that people say a lot.
Yeah. I mean, typically if you have a question that's a burning question, someone else is thinking the same thing.
Yes.
So with the freelance writers part, I think we had seen an infographic previously about how much, I don't remember, it was like a certain job in an industry, how much people make in San Francisco versus the living cost in San Francisco. And we were blown away by the living cost in San Francisco. And we were like, well, how much do writers in New York and San Francisco, how many words do they have to write to just live in that city? So that's why we did that map of a bunch of the different cities in the States and looked at the average amount of money a freelance writer makes per word, and just looked at how many books you would need to write a month just to survive in a city like New York or San Francisco. Do
a lot of these come about? I'm just curious, like how things work and flow within the company. I have some clients that it's been interesting to observe where these content ideas come from. Are these like conversations over the lunch table, like, or just things that throughout a meeting? Are they just kind of coming up in your day-to-day conversation? Or are they things where it's just you sitting by yourself and you have the idea, or is it both?
You actually just cut out briefly during that.
Okay, yeah, I can edit that in Skype. So the question was, when you're saying that we come up with these ideas, is it you and your other people at Venngage sitting around the lunch table, like just chatting about things casually? Do they just kind of come up serendipitously, or is it, you by yourself brainstorming, or how do those ideas, where's the spark for those ideas?
Sometimes it is just an idea that comes up, but most of the time we do conduct brainstorming sessions where we will we'll think of an idea together, and we'll just try to figure out an angle that works best. But usually it's spurred from some type of trending content. So we like to do mashup content where we'll mix something that's trending with an evergreen topic, for instance. So I can use, we did a Star Wars piece just before the Force Awakens movie came out. We didn't want to do the same thing that everyone else was doing, something along the lines of how much did this movie make in the box office compared to previous movies. That's like the typical infographic. We still wanted to tie it back into design or to infographics in general. So we looked at design trends you can get from Star Wars, and we looked at all the different movies, and broke it down that way so that people can still apply that information. And this way, not only are we ranking on terms that are Star Wars related, but if you look up design tips or design tactics, you'll get that same infographic. So that's a lot of our strategy, is combining interesting, trendy content with evergreen ideas, so that people are engaged by it, but it still will last a while.
I see. And by the way, in my mind, I'm going through a little bit of a process. So, ideas, and then maybe planning, and then maybe creating, and then maybe promoting. So I'm kind of working through those steps just so you know where my head's at with that. So now you've got a bunch of ideas. Do you plan them out in a content calendar? Do they go into drafts in WordPress? How do you kind of queue up the topics?
So we plan everything. We have an editorial calendar. We use Trello for all of our scheduling. It really depends if there's some type of holiday coming up, or like I said, some type of release of a big movie. Like when Fantastic Beasts came out, we did a Harry Potter related infographic on which house does your company belong in based on your company culture, that kind of thing. So yeah, we'll schedule it, and typically we try to produce something every week or every 2 weeks, and we don't like writing the 7 tips for getting like 7 content marketing trends that you didn't know existed and just like make it a generic article. We prefer to go a little bit deeper and make sure everything is research backed, but also is accompanied by some type of data viz or infographic. Mm-hmm. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Now you've got the content planned out in a calendar, maybe you're doing seasonal things like you mentioned. Now it's time to actually create the content. So a lot of I'm looking at how much do freelance writers make, and you've got a map, and then there's a chart, and then there's like a pie graph, and it's interactive, and like looks like a lot of research went into this. Would that be true to say that a lot of your content has a lot of research before you even start creating the graphic or the text?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have to do the research before we can pass off anything to the design team or to the product team. And with this specific example of the freelance writers infographic, mm-hmm. certain content that we produce is like a mini product launch in the way that we go about it. So there's the marketing team brainstorms, we have the outline, we send the outline off to the design team to draw out or conceive the infographic, and then they send that out to the product team who builds it. And then during this process, we're still writing the article and doing the research, but we at least have the outline so that they have kind of a guideline to work with. Mm-hmm. And then the goal in the end is that it all comes together at the same time.
Yeah, I got to get more in the launch mindset myself. So I had John Lee Dumas on the podcast recently, and he's doing a book launch. And then I was talking to Tom Critchlow offline, and he was talking about looking at marketing things like a launch. I got to get that mindset better. You're now like the 3rd or 4th person that's mentioned that. It seems to be really effective. I'm looking at some of the, we're going to get to backlinks in a moment, but some of the content, according to Moz, has like 30, 40, 50 linking root domains to a single piece of content. And that's mm-hmm. great. So what goes into and if I'm getting the process correct, so I imagine, so it's research, and then like you said, you pass it off to product, to the designers. What does the research process look like for you at Venngage? Do you put one person on it? Do several people research? Is it different? Like, how does that process get executed?
It depends who's working on the content. Usually if it's marketing related content, I like to handle that one. Mm-hmm. But for instance, the freelance writers article, one of our content guys, his name's Ryan. He actually has an economics background. Mm-hmm. So he loves producing data-driven related content. I'm going to be honest, I'm not entirely sure of his process. He spends a good week and a half researching, just doing the research and creating an outline first, mm-hmm. Which he then sends off to the rest of the team so that we can just take a quick look at it and make sure that it makes sense, make sure that the sources are all credible. Yes. But yeah, he spends, I would say, the bulk of his time doing research and then one day writing the actual article itself. I
want all the listeners to catch that. A week to a week and a half researching and one day writing. That ratio, that's quite common, right? A lot of people are shocked to hear that.
Yeah. And I mean, so many content marketers, if you want to call them that, they'll write an article in 20 minutes based on whatever crapshoot knowledge they got in like that amount of time. Yes. I'm not going to lie. Like, I've done that in the past. If I'm doing a guest post for some no-name site, maybe I'll do that. But for the most part, like I think everyone on our team spends the majority of their time doing the research and then the least amount of time actually writing. Yeah,
it's usually like 80-20. Anytime I've tried to shortcut research, it always takes me twice as long because I'm going back and fixing all the things I should have done at the beginning with the research. Even a post on Moz where it's something that I'm, very familiar with. It's still good to set an outline to do that research. So you have somebody do the research, yourself or Ryan or somebody on your team, and then this gets passed to the, like you said, product or design team. And then from there, are they simply using your tool to create the graphics for the content?
So it depends which graphics. So the freelance writers one was not created on our tool. That needed some back end work. Oh. But we'll do every now and then we'll do like a massive data viz. We did one for the Oscars as well, which takes the whole team's work. And so the design team will, like I said, conceive the idea, and product and design will work together to figure out what the flow is. Marketing as well. We'll all just kind of power through how we want the infographic to look, how we want it to work, if it's an interactive one, and then what our promotion plan is after for that specific one. We also think about, during that research phase at the beginning, we also research who might be interested in pitching and writing about this infographic or including it in post.
Yeah, so that's great. I wanted to get to the promotion part. I know a lot of listeners are going to be excited and interested in this piece of it. It's the part that can earn links and traffic and all that stuff. So how do you think about going about promotion? Like I said, I'm seeing a lot of the content having 20, 30, 40 linking root domains to one piece of content. Do you have a consistent process for each piece of content? Is it different depending upon what the content is? What's kind of the general overview of the promotion side of things?
It's relatively consistent. First, we have about 4 different strategies that we use for promotion. The first one is we'll see what's ranking first for the term that we're targeting, and we'll contact everyone who's linking to that article. And the usual backlink replacement technique where we'll just say, skyscraper technique a little bit. Yeah, or we've created something better. Do you want to take a look at it? Maybe include it in an updated article. And
people have studied that. Does that work? You're finding that's working?
Yeah, it works. It works really well. I think it works better than some of our, in terms of just getting volume of links. But of course, the value that comes from an older link is not the same as a newly published link. So, sure. You still get, I feel like you still get the same value from it in the end because you just get more links that way. Yep. But it also comes down to how you pitch and how you write your email. Each person's different. Sure.
And I want to get to maybe a little pitching or emailing in a moment. So you said there were 4 basic approaches, I think that was the first one.
Yeah. And then the next one is what I just call the content outreach approach. That's finding people that have written on a similar subject already and just asking them if they're working on anything new, if they would like to include this infographic in an upcoming article. And how do you find them? Do you go to BuzzSumo? Yeah, we use BuzzSumo. We also use Ahrefs too. Their Content Explorer tool is really good. I like Ahrefs because you can at least filter out lower domain rating sites. We would, we'd rather have mentions on higher DA sites if for sure. Possible. Yeah. So we tend to filter them out.
So if you're publishing if you're promoting the hero's journey one, let's say, so you just go to Ahrefs, you find people that have written about the hero's journey before, or maybe writing or things along those lines, and that becomes your target list.
Yeah, exactly.
I see. And so I'm sorry to interrupt the process. I just like to fill in the gaps. So, okay. So once you find that target list, then it's just a matter of reaching out to them.
Exactly. So we use Mailshake to do a lot of our outreach, just because you can schedule replies to go out as well, follow-ups. And we find that we typically use 4 to 5 follow-ups is the most effective for us.
Wow. Yeah. So when I've gotten so many email pitches lately, not for content, not for links, but surprisingly for like business services, where these people will follow up 4 and 5 times. So I'm one of those people that just like archive when that happens. Yeah. That hasn't really happened for content yet. So I could see that maybe potentially working in the content realm. What about the pitches themselves? Are you customizing them or using templates? You mentioned catering it to the target. Like, how are you doing pitches? Yeah, so we try to customize it as much as possible. There is a starting template that we use, but unlike a lot of agencies, SEO agencies that use a VA to do a lot of the outreach, our in-house team promotes their own article. So if Sarah writes an article, she's doing the bulk of the promotion for that article, just because we find that when you, the author yourself, are promoting your own work, if
somebody has questions about it, you're the best to answer that. There's a face at least to you. And we find that works really well.
I like
and also,
that tip a lot. It's so common that the writer's not the one doing the outreach.
There's always a team of outreach people that are usually VAs that are somewhere either in the Philippines or in Serbia that like, how did you come across this article?
Yeah, for a lot of other companies, you mean they have a VA team. Right. It makes so much sense to have the writer. The writer's like close to the subject. They know it. They know the essence of it. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And then when you're talking to the person, you're saying, hey, I wrote this article. Would you be interested in giving me some feedback or even including it in an upcoming post? If they're reading the article, they know exactly who they're talking with. If they like the article, they're way more likely to link to it. And like I said, we spend so much time on research. We do get a lot of good feedback for the content. Of course, every now and then you're going to get somebody who's pissed off because they're being emailed. But
yeah. What about style of language of pitches? Do you go with longer or shorter, or do you try to mention a personal connection or like a hobby or an interest, or is it just depend upon the style of the writer? Anything that you've noticed along those lines that maybe works or doesn't work?
I try to keep them relatively short. I mean, whenever somebody sends me a really long email, I don't read it. Yeah. So I try to, like I said before, I try to think of what I'm going to open, what I would actually be interested in reading in terms of an email. And I do try to keep it as personal as possible. Another good thing about Mailshake, it's very much like BuzzStream, where you can go through each one and personalize it. And then like a lot of people will send out massive lists of like thousands at a time. I try to limit it to no more than 100 at a time, just because it's easier to go through each one and add that personal touch. So
you're pitching about 100 people per piece of content?
Yeah, at a time. At
a time. Okay. What about total? Like, are you just doing that till they're all exhausted, or?
Yeah. So I think with the whole team, if we're all doing the outreach, we maybe reach out to about 400 to 500 people a week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. But we try to filter out, we try to maintain that list so that it's actually a strong list of leads, as opposed to just hitting up anybody that might publish it. And that way we can just keep reworking that lead and keep nurturing it and hopefully build a relationship. And even if people respond angrily, we do respond to every single reply that we get, even if they're angry, and just apologize and say, hey, look, we just want to make it up to you. Can we maybe make you a free infographic instead?
I see. Yeah, you want to keep people happy. So I think that was step 2 or version 2 of promoting it. Were there 2 others?
Maybe. The next one is PR. So we actually do like a very PR driven approach. Okay. Where we'll find writers on big name sites, big authority sites. And this is where we do more of a manual outreach. Because these writers are pitched constantly, this is where we try to focus and make it as personal of an outreach as possible. I typically will find a specific article that they've written. I'll read the article. I'll point out a few things I liked about it. And then I'll explain why I think they'll be interested in the one I'm pitching them, how it might tie in to that existing article, or how it could fit for a future one. So I'll give you an example. We did when Google I/O was happening last year, we did an infographic timeline of all of Google's releases over time. And I found this writer on Business Insider who just wrote about Google updates all the time. So I reached out to her specifically. And then when Apple did their event, we did another infographic that was similar, reached out to the guy that only writes about Apple launches. So instead of just hitting up anyone that has included that keyword somewhere in their article, we're actually reading the articles and pointing out just specific trends and pitching them something that they're way more interested in than just like mass mailing people.
Yeah, when Carrie Jones was in the show from Fractal, you probably know who she is. She talked about really making, like, one of the biggest mistakes is people not pitching the publisher that writes about the that their beat is, what your content's about. How long would you say these very personalized custom pitches take from, finding who it is to doing the research to writing the pitch to sending it?
So we still start out with a relatively generic template that you can just change a few lines of.
We're talking about like an hour or like 2 hours or? If I'm emailing 50 people, it might take me just between an hour and 2 hours. Okay. Yeah, I want to get a sense for, just again, to give people perspective on like, this stuff's work, right? It takes time to do that. Okay, so you do the skyscraper technique, the content pitching, PR approach. Are there any other approaches to outreach, link acquisition, promotion of the content that we have not covered?
So there is one more. Aside from re-pitching people that you already have connections with, which is always great. I will say this is, whenever you have the opportunity, try to establish an in-person relationship. So I'll give you an example. There was this writer for Distractify, which is kind of like a lesser BuzzFeed. They have a massive audience. So we did this Game of Thrones Web of Betrayals infographic. And I pitched it to this guy at Distractify, and he was like, sure, we'll post it. And what ended up happening is it performed really well on Distractify. So they promoted it on Facebook, and George Takei ended up retweeting or sharing it on Facebook. And because they were using an embedded version of the infographic, the traffic, we were getting a ton of referral traffic just from that George Takei share. And our site actually ended up crashing because of the amount of traffic that we got. I think we got over 50,000 views in less than an hour. Wow. So after that, I was like, okay, well, this is a really useful contact to have. Yes. So I was in New York one weekend, and I noticed on his LinkedIn that he was also in New York. So I said, hey, do you want to just meet up for coffee? Like, you published this thing that we did a while ago. It might just be nice to connect in person. So we did, and now we're really great friends. And every time I have an article that I want to pitch, it's just like, yo, can you publish this? And and he's way faster to respond than. It's crazy.
I'm going to tell the listeners a little secret. That in-person thing is a great tip. So about a year ago, I met Adam, I forget his last name. He works for Google Analytics. He helps manage the Google Analytics Twitter account that has almost 1 million followers or something, or 600,000. Adam Singer. And I met him in person. And when he met, he said, hey, I like your content. If you ever have anything analytics related, ping me and we'll share it on the Google Analytics Twitter account. And kind of forgot about that. And then last episode we published with Jeff Sauer, who talked all about Google Analytics. And I was like, wait a second, I've got a contact. So I pinged Adam Singer, and literally 5 minutes later, Google Analytics Twitter's account tweeted my podcast episode.
Yeah, I think I saw that episode, and it was one of the more popular ones you have on iTunes.
Oh yeah. Because that popularity bar you're talking about is it's more or less a real-time indication of what episode is being listened to the most at that time. So it's usually going to be the top episode, but then after that, you'll see the ones that are truly more popular as back episodes. But yeah, so that's a great example, I think, of a in-person connection. Adam and I met in person. He mentioned this thing, and then like a year and months later, I contacted him, and he shared it on the Google Analytics Twitter account. So I see that all the time as well. I definitely can't emphasize that enough. Any other promotion things, maybe outside of links? So I know you mentioned that now in 2017, you're starting to branch out and experiment with other, marketing channels, and maybe we'll get to that in a second. But are there any other content promotion or promotion channels or tactics that we're leaving out?
Within email outreach, or it could be
anything at all. So now, like, there were 4 ways of doing outreach to get links, but maybe beyond that, are you promoting the content on social? Are you branching out into paid, or what are some of the other avenues that you're taking there?
Yeah, so we started branching out into paid Facebook ads. And it's more so to just get, we'll run Facebook ads for insights rather than ROI. So for instance, one test that we ran was we asked ourselves the question, to what extent does the design of an ad image impact your actual click-through rate. So we conducted a test where we ran about 50 different ads where everything was the same, the copy was the same, the content was the same. The only thing that changed was a small element of the visual itself. And then in the end, we figured out a certain pattern of visuals that worked really, really well in terms of increased click-through rate and lower cost per click. And then from now on, running that same type of ad with that same type of visual, our cost per click is like 2 cents.
Wow. Can you tell us? We have to know.
What we found out is that if you use a darker background, dark background, white text that's left positioned, that's a sans serif font. And at this point, we were promoting an ebook, so we were focusing on lead generation. Include a product shot, so like a picture of a book with the title on it, and an actual call to action. So say in the image, download now. And that image in itself worked really well. And we think it's because the dark color stands out a lot on the white Facebook news feed background.
A very bright place, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it just catches people's attention. You have the product shot there, so it adds tangibility to the ebook or to the PDF that you're giving away, and just telling them what to do.
Yeah, were these in feed ads or were they on the right sidebar?
No, they're in feed ads.
The in feed ones.
Yeah.
Boosted or actual ads?
Actual ads.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we tested 50 actual ads, and we found that that worked the best. And then the second one was a picture of Oprah photoshopped holding a few ebooks that performed really well, but we decided not to keep running with it just in case Oprah got mad or something.
Oprah. That totally ran. Where did you come up with Oprah?
Because we were testing memes and GIFs. So there's that meme, where Oprah's like, everyone gets a car and her hands are up in the air, and it's just a picture of Oprah's hands in the air. And it's always photoshopped with, you get this, you get this. So we did this. So it's like, you get an ebook, and it was just like in her hands photoshopped the ebook into there.
What was there a assumption to why that worked? Was it a popular figure? Was it the actual image?
No, it was a popular figure. People saw Oprah and then clicked. It's like, that makes the most sense because we tested a few variations of memes and the other ones just did not perform nearly as well.
Wow. So, and this was still an ad for a book?
It was an ebook. So I guess people saw, well, Oprah has this ebook, so I'll download it. But then we had to stop promoting it because I know a few people who have received cease and desist from.
Sure. That is funny. So this is all great stuff. I hope the listeners are getting as much out of it as I am. I want to tie a little bit of bow on the SEO stuff and the content stuff and get to a few other questions. But first, I got to circle back again and ask about, is there any keyword research at all? Because as an SEO, when I look at all the pages driving organic search traffic via these keywords, they're crazy good. They're so good. Things like what did I mention? The hero's journey. And, I've got another article here about Twitter hashtags. Like, there's so many great keywords. Was there really no keyword research or targeting?
Oh, no, there's a lot of keyword research.
Okay.
So during that week and a half of research, the first thing we do is keyword research.
Okay.
So we have an idea. For instance, we knew we wanted to do something about Twitter, Twitter hashtags. It was already a popular topic. It was just identifying which keyword to go after.
Yes.
And same with the hero's journey one. Previously, we knew that the storybook theme worked well with our audience and that fictional characters work well. So we wanted to tie in 6 different movies that use the hero's journey. But at the time, we didn't know it was hero's journey that we were targeting. And then we identified that this is actually a keyword that we could go after.
What tools or methods did you maybe use to find that one or any of the keywords?
Google Keyword Planner.
Really? That's it.
Yeah.
It gets such a bad reputation now, but I've said many times that if you know how to use it right, you can find some good stuff.
No, it's still, I think it works really well for us. We also use sometimes Moz's Keyword Explorer tool.
I love that tool.
Yeah. And we find overall the results are pretty much the same. So
Wow. So how did you get to Hero's Journey? Did you plug in storytelling, or like, how did you get to that keyword, or any of them per se?
A lot of it comes from inspiration of content that we've seen performing well elsewhere.
I see.
So I don't exactly remember that particular process. I wasn't really focusing on that project. That was a different writer was working on it. But I think her sorry, go ahead.
One thing, and I'll link to in the show notes, I wrote an article like 3 years ago in Advanced Web Ranking about this keyword planner hack where you plug in the landing page that you want, or you put in a Wikipedia page and you have it suggest the keywords from that as if it was a landing page you were going to do ads with. And is that what you did? Did you find content that already existed and put the URL into Keyword Planner?
No.
You should do that.
We should do that. That sounds like a really great idea. I'm going to write that down.
I'll send you the post. Okay.
Please do.
But I'm sorry, you were going to say?
No, but like, yeah, well, you can, when we see content that's performing well, you can tell what keyword they're going after just based on the title, based on the content and the URL.
Yes.
So we typically look for lower competition keywords, and high-ish volume. And I say high-ish because the content on our blog is all for long tail purposes. Yes. We don't assume tons of traffic is going to come in for that particular post. So it is all long tail keyword stuff. But then for our homepage, we target higher volume words like infographic or infographics, infographic maker, any term that's high volume and general knowledge, or lower volume but is going to convert really well.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and I've been preaching this so much, and I tweeted about it the other day. Even a keyword that has 10 searches a month by volume, quote, in the keyword planner, can get a couple thousand visits a month because of all the long tail. And then what happens is, and what I'm seeing on Venngage is you're ranking for the high volume stuff, anyways. Which is what can happen if you target the long tail, but then you build the authority of that content. Then you will rank for the Did you know you rank position 4 for millennials suck?
Yeah. Yeah. That article is funny because we recently wrote an article on the benefits of immigration for innovation. And I think Andy Crestodina was talking about it with you on that episode of your podcast.
Oh, yeah.
About opinion-based content. So we do try to inject an opinion as much as possible. So after publishing this immigrant-related article, we knew we were going to get a ton of backlash from maybe more right-wing supporters.
Yes.
Who claim that immigration might not be so great. So we were expecting that. But what was shocking was that the millennial article actually got more anger and more hatred than the immigration for innovation article.
Wow.
People really hate millennials. So
yeah,
I'm sorry to hear that because I myself am a millennial.
Yeah, like I just missed that boat. My wife's at the tail end of it. But Simon Sinek had that video that went crazy viral a little while ago about millennials as well. And by the way, Carrie Jones said there were two types of content, she said, that would get a lot of attention. Geographic content and millennial content.
Yeah, it definitely got a lot of attention.
Yeah. So
it's one of our posts that still brings in the most traffic.
I see that. So when you identify the keywords, then what's your process from there to put them into the content? Just the best page, on page, the best practice on page SEO process, or is there anything else special there for the on page keyword targeting?
We don't try to keyword stuff in the content itself. We just try to write naturally. As long as we're writing about that topic, the keyword reveals itself naturally throughout the content. And then we do try to just keep the URL shorter, keep the keyword relevant in there and within the title. But yeah, basic optimization, best practices.
The other thing I want to mention quickly is most of your content has tons of text on it. It's not just a URL with an infographic. Like this one about the hero's journey, I mean, eyeballing it must have like 2,500 words or something like that on this one article. So I just want to point that out to the listeners. And by the way, I'm going to link to your interview with Jason, who sort of introduced us. We had met one time before, but I'm going to link to your interview with him because you talked about how to create, I believe, a nice infographic, like the elements that go into that. So some listeners might be wondering how to do that. But if you have a few extra minutes, I have a couple other questions.
Yeah, for sure.
Actually, I had one tip for you. Sometimes I give SEO tips to guests in the show.
Oh, please.
You have a gallery, correct, on Venngage what was that reaction there? Do you
a gallery we haven't done anything with? It's just kind of sitting there right now.
Okay, well, here's what you can do with it. So, infographic examples has 8,800 searches a month in Google. That should really be your target term for that page. You could rank for that. That's infographic examples. That's what that content is. And then there's longer tails by category. So infographic examples for health, for college, for education. Collect and categorize all of your example infographics and create subpages for those. Maybe write a little bit about what the best elements are for that category. And I think you could target some, the examples and then the long tail stuff that way. So that's my tip. Yeah. You do that and report back. I want to see how it goes.
Oh, I definitely will. This is definitely in our strategy for next quarter to work on this page.
That's great. So I wanted to ask, you're the marketing director, so you're working in-house. Do you have to hire or work with or deal with outside vendors? Like PPC agencies or like outside freelancers or anything like that?
We try not to. One of our, driving values at Venngage is that we're constantly striving for consistent growth and knowledge. So we do try to train everyone in-house to become the best marketer they can be, and as a well-rounded marketer. It might take time. Like, I'm far from perfect, but we do try to double down on things that are working, and then once we figure out the process, we create the playbook for it, pass it on to the rest of the team. And then once that's done, I can then start looking at a different channel and trying to figure it out. And once that's figured out, we do the same process over and over again.
Okay. I'm going to switch gears and bend the question a little. I was going to ask about pros and cons about outside vendors, but what about bringing in new employees in-house? I imagine you must help with the review process for hiring. What are things you look for in an employee or somebody to bring into your team?
So we conduct 2 different interviews, depending on what role we're hiring for. But if we're hiring for marketing, I'll conduct one interview, and then Eugene will conduct another interview. And we typically interview partially for skill, but mostly for hustle. So we're looking for people who are going to take initiative and try to learn as much as they can. They're not just doing the work. They're not just reading what they're told to read. They're like going out of their way to find new content. They're sharing that knowledge with the rest of the team. We're looking for people who are team players that actually do want to contribute to the growth of the rest of the company, that care about the company. And as a result, like, we have a pretty great culture. So we do try to make sure that everyone feels welcome, that everyone enjoys coming to work, and it doesn't feel like you're going to another job. It's just like, it's actually looking for people that fit into that culture more so than who have the necessary skills.
Yes. That's such a millennial thing too. No, I'm just kidding.
I know it is.
Just teasing you about that. But you do hear that quite commonly, right? Like the common thing that millennials want to feel fulfilled at work. And I think that's great. I mean, I like that too. Maybe I'm a little part millennial, even though I'm older. But are there, like, so it sounds like you're looking for a certain sense of the candidate being proactive.
Exactly.
Is there like a tangible tip? Because maybe somebody, like, what if somebody is a little bit more like an introvert or a little bit more shy? Like, is there a tangible tip that you can give, like, that you've seen maybe a candidate do, or that you would suggest that somebody can do to show that proactiveness?
Yeah, definitely. So actually, we just recently hired a lead SEO person just to take on what I've been doing and kind of scale it up a bit. And we narrowed it down to 2 candidates, and it was a really hard decision to make. So I sent out a questionnaire to the last 2 candidates, and I said, hey, if you could just fill out these 5 questions, write it as you would write a blog post. So the idea was to see not only how they write, but how they optimize the content for SEO. So one candidate, she actually created a website and built the website, answered all the questions as an actual blog post. But then the other candidate went a step above, and he actually did an SEO, like an entire audit of our entire site.
Oh my goodness.
Using those questions to guide him. And he wrote over 5,000 words. So each question, I would say, was its own blog post of him just like analyzing it based on that. And I was blown away. I was like, he went above and beyond. He didn't just answer the questions. He actually like did the research, and he like included screenshots. He wrote it in a compelling manner that made it engaging to read. And
I thought the number one was going to be the one that showed the effort.
Yeah, that was good too. That's why it was so hard.
Yeah, that is great. So really, and I've heard these before, like create a website, be proactive, like actually write the marketing plan. Like these are all great examples of anybody that's, looking to try to get a job or a position or even a freelance position. I want to ask about one other thing, if you have a minute, and that is that I noticed that you write for a lot of other websites. You write for Huffington Post, I believe Entrepreneur, Business.com. How did you make those connections? How did you end up being a contributor on those sites? Was it through Venngage, or was that through a personal, connections on your own?
It's through Venngage. And again, that aligns with our value of personal growth and constant improvement. And I guess part of the strategy is like trying to position yourself as a thought leader and an influencer within your industry. Mm-hmm. So I just pitched like crazy, and I was just really persistent. I think it took me a long time to get accepted onto Entrepreneur and Forbes. I think Forbes, I would pitch articles, and then they would say, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, send the article, and I would work hard on the article, and then they'd be like, actually, it's not a fit. And that happened, I want to say 6 times before. Yeah. And then I sent an article, and I heard nothing back, and the next day they just told me it was scheduled to be published. And same thing happened with Entrepreneur, not as many times, but it took me a few attempts to actually get somebody to respond to me. But that's why I say follow up 5 times or more, because by the time people are just busy, or eventually they're just gonna get frustrated with all your emails and have to respond to you. Yeah. The worst case scenario is somebody's just going to say no.
That is great. So once you become a contributor, what are some things that you can do to keep them happy with your contributions so they allow you to keep writing for them?
Just keep writing good stuff. Don't lower your standards of content. And I think a lot of people do fall into that trap. I don't hire ghostwriters, which I think I know of a few like influencers that do that. I'm not going to say names, but
I was a ghostwriter once for somebody, and I said I will never do that again, but we will talk about that now.
I don't hire ghostwriters. I like to write my own content and try to keep my voice in there as much as possible. But yeah, just like do the research, write content that you yourself would read. And it's the people that write crappy content that make it harder for everyone else. So I really don't want to be that person.
Yeah, that is such a good point, is like you kind of ruin it for everyone else once the content quality starts going
and
down.
Then sites like Huffington Post and the Next Web make all of their links no follow. And then you're like, well, now I'm just contributing my time to you.
Yeah. Do they do that? I just posted on the Next Web for the first time. They no follow their links?
They just no followed. Only recently. They used to be follow links. Yeah. Same with Huffington Post.
What happened with the Next Web is I got introduced to one of the editors there, Lauren, and wrote a whole... Actually, I wrote the whole post before I even was introduced to her. Then Dimitri introduced me to her.
I know.
And she accepted the post, and then 6 months went by and nothing happened. So I published it on my own website. And 2 days later, I don't know if this is a coincidence, they published it. So I was like,
so you took it down.
I took it down, and it's still a podcast episode. I talked through it in an audio format. But anyways, this is all great stuff. So I do want to wrap it up in a moment. I appreciate your time and sharing all this with the listeners here at Experts in the Wire. And it's cool to hear you've listened to the show. I'm always super humbled to hear that.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
I appreciate that. So tell the listeners where they can find you online, your Twitter, your LinkedIn, your websites, everywhere you'd like to send people.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys want to create an account at Venngage, just go to venngage.com. But I'm also pretty responsive on Twitter. It's at Nadya Khoja, and that's Nadya with a Y, not an I.
And spell your last name?
Email Khoja.
Okay.
Or just email me, just Nadya@venngage.com. I answer most normal emails.
That's great. And by the way, I'm never here to sell products, but I was looking at Vengage's pricing, and it's like $49 a month for like the business platform, which
for the most expensive plan.
Yeah, that's the most expensive one. If you're trying to create graphics, I mean, it seems like a great thing to at least try out, give it a trial. It's something I'm even like, maybe I could do this for some client content work that we're trying to do. It looks really interesting to me. But anyways, with that, thank you again for coming on Experts in the Wire, and we'll see everyone next time. Thank you.
Thanks so much.